Elmhurst, Queens, which was basically a kind of a blue-collar neighborhood. It was a building we grew up in was built around 1920. It was pretty damn nice. It was a nice, elegant building with bricks that had relief, and I mean, it was really nice. There was a big, huge lobby that we used to play in. You'd go in and you could go in one direction, which was the A side, and you can go to the left, which was the B side. Now, why they didn't make that side the A side and this side the B side, I don't know, because you start here. Maybe it was sort of like a looking at it from north-south or something. I have no idea. Architects always fool me anyway. They have some weird justification for everything they do. And, you can't do anything but go, okay. And that's what it is with the A and the B side. So I lived on the B side, on the left side. And my house had a terrace. Now, the terrace was nice for about the first 12 years, but then someone built a building right in front of my terrace. So all my terrace looked at were bricks, which is the horror of buildings being built next to the building you're looking out of. And when I was, I had a great view of New York City when it was before that building was built. Then I can see parts of it in the Empire State, not the Empire State Building, but the Chrysler Building. And it was really neat. Now, maybe I didn't see that. Maybe that's part of my imagination. I think maybe Pete might come and get me for daring to say that. No, you can't look at that. You were looking at the Bronx. But for now, take it I was looking at Manhattan. Anyway, so who knows what that's about. But as kids, I lived at B36, the third floor. Pete first lived at B48, the second floor, and then he moved down to the first floor next to John Jennings, who was had the corner apartment over there. And Pete and John were right next door to each other. I mean, you couldn't walk more than 6 inches. You could step from his apartment, one apartment to the other without even touching the hallway. And that was probably something they did and said, look what we can do. They never bragged about it to me, but they probably could have done it. And then there was Stevie Jenks. Stevie Jenks was a kid who I guess I was as close to because we were, look at John Jennings was 1 year younger than me and Pete Etzel was 2 years older than me. Stevie Jenks was exactly my age. Stevie Jenks, sadly, was one of those, he left his family, the Jenkses, Marge Jenks and forget the father's name, who were friends with my parents. They had something to do with the arts or the theater or something because they were friends with my parents. They moved to Chicago, I guess. And Steve, through his father, I guess, became one of those phenom disc jockeys at the age of 10 years old. Had his own radio program and all that stuff, which was kind of cool. But when we were 5 and 6 and we were dressing up in cowboy uniforms and had 6-shooters, pew, pew, and we went under the stairs and shot everyone else. And sometimes peed under there. See, we never talked about this to my friends, but sometimes we would sneak down there and no one was looking. We didn't have to walk upstairs so we could just pee because no one would know it. Now, they did know it, of course, because the smell of urine permeated the clothes. But it was little boy pee, so they didn't worry about it. Plus, the janitor, as soon as Mr. Duryea even sensed it, he probably didn't. It was probably May Duryea who sensed it, and she said, "Get the porter to clean that up, those dirty kids." And I was one of those dirty kids, and so was Pete Etzel, and so was John Jennings. So was the Gersons, Ray and Steve Gerson. So was Gowdy, Richie Gowdy, lived there. Who else? Alan Goldfine. Now, he wasn't dirty. He would go up the stairs. Marcia Lizer. No, she wouldn't do it either. There is all sorts of kids in our building. Therefore, the street was very, very lively and vivid. And a bunch of us hung out on the stoop. The stoop was home away from home for just about everybody. And when I seen everybody, I mean everyone we knew. We would sit down on the stoop. There were two stoops, one on each side of the building, and there was one group of kids, one age level, who sat on this side, and one group of kids on this side. Now this side, the left side, the B side, that was for the cooler kids. This was for the ones who were who just had, they were older. They deserved to be there. They claimed that probably. And the little kids over there, they didn't really know from nothing because they were 5 and 6. But we were 10 and 11, and we were starting to roll up our sleeves. Occasionally, some one of us would have a cigarette. We'd smoke it and giggle. All at like 8 or 9 or 10 years old. And the games we played were kind of interesting. One game we played was stoop ball, and it was right where we sat. What we would do is we'd play stoop ball. In other words, when a car moved and there was a space so that the stoop could go and face the street, it would be 2 people versus 2 people. That's usually what the sides were. And there would be someone with a Spalding ball, and he would hit the stoop. Now the stoop has a series of steps with points on them, okay, and then a flat point. Now the ball can hit the point and go off up in the air, or it can come in like this, rebound, and go down on the street. Well, if you didn't hit the point, then your ball was going to be caught, unless the other team was terrible. So that meant that if you don't hit the point, you're out. Now there's another way you can go out. When you hit the point, it also means it's going to go straight up like this, so then they can catch it in the street. Or it's going to go right to them, so they can catch it like that. Or it's going to go across the street and hit the other side. Now, if it goes about above the first floor, it's a home run. If it goes to the first floor, it's a double. Okay. But if the other outfielder can turn around and catch the ball without it hitting the ground, it became an out. You're out. And we played 2 outs, I think, per inning. And we played until we got tired. Or until one side won by so much we just gave it up. We also played stickball, which was there was fast stickball against the wall, and we would have a box on the wall. If the pitcher hit it in the box, pitched it in the box, it was a strike. And then if the same rules, if the guy hit it and it went over the 3rd floor, it was a home run. If it went onto the 2nd floor, you probably broke a window, and you got to run like hell. Now, the bad news for us was the stickball strike zone was on 9216, which was across the street from us. So we were pitching towards away from our building, but hitting towards our building. And that was very bad news. So we stopped that kind of stickball at some point because we broke too many windows in our house. And the people started to complain, and Mr. Durier would have to, fix every pane of window we ever broke. Back then, the good news that the window was just a series of panes. So if you broke a piece of glass, it was no big deal to go over to Reagan's Hardware, get some putty, put the glass pane in, and it was over. But now if you break a window, it becomes a major lawsuit. But that was back then. In any case, we stopped that, and we got into bouncing, playing it on the street along either Benham Street or Whitney Avenue if it was midday when there were not many cars. Because when there were cars there, we had to stop the game until the car goes. Sometimes some guy would go real slow and we're going, "Hey, let's go, buddy! Come on, come on." He's afraid of hitting one of us. We're not going to get hit by a car. We're too smart for that. And so we played, it would be one, your pitcher pitches one bounce, and the hitter has to hit it on the first bounce. And that's when people like Robbie Coonan, he blasts it out of this world. I mean, this is a kid, for some reason, he could hit a ball like a mile. He was just so good. Now, he wasn't a particularly big kid, but I guess he had the wrist power or something. I have no idea. But he should have been a professional baseball player because he was good. Now, that was the two forms of stickball. Then we had a variation on stoop ball, and it was called curveball. Now, in our street and where we lived, the curbs were, the stoop was step, 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 about 8 steps. And that was the stoop. And we would sit on the stoops, two per stair. Maybe fit 6 people on the stoop, and then a couple of people would be sitting on the rail and stuff like that. All being, wise-ass little kids. And then, but when we didn't play, when someone was parked in front of the stoop and we wanted to play something, we'd play curveball. Now, curveball was based on this curve, which was not a square curve, which had a point, but it was a round curve. So the ball would hit it and it'd go off at all different angles, depending upon, it would either go off here, go off here, go off straight. But we played it right across the street from not the 9216, but from a garage, a 1-story garage that's flat. And here's what happened. One day, George Jones was standing out in the outfield, and one of us hit the ball up on the roof of the garage. Now what we do, and I think it was John Jennings, went and he got the ball. But the garage is owned by the dentist, Dr. Goldfarb. And Dr. Goldfarb was finally enough is enough with these kids going on the roof to fetch the ball. So he came out and he looked at the first kid he saw, and the first kid he saw was George Jones. And he started to come to George Jones. And George Jones says something like, "Get the hell away from me." At which point the guy started to charge after him. And George said something real nasty and took off. He just took off down the street. And the guy, the dentist, took off right after him. So now I'm up on the roof, or John's up on the roof, and we're watching this whole thing. And they're going for a long run. Now, George happened to have been on the track team at school. And so what he did was he took the dentist on a merry little ride all the way through. And finally, we see them and they come back, and George stands amongst us. And that's when it really got heavy, because that's when the doctor started giving out ultimatums. I'm going to have the police over here. I'm going to get a German Shepherd. I'm going to have a gate put on there. All sorts of stuff. Bottom line was, George got upset with what he said. And I guess he was feeling good about it. He could say what he wants because he could beat the guy bad. And so he gave him the finger. He gave him the finger. And with that, the guy started chasing George again. And instead of going one way down Whitney Avenue, he went the other way down this time. And sure enough, we watched it again. And sure enough, we're laughing like crazy. And George is running, almost like making fun of this guy. And finally, we lose them. They go up Ask Street. And we can't see them for a while. But then finally, we see George, and he's running around. And about 30 or 40 feet behind him is the doctor. Okay, and he's fine. Meantime, George is coming down the street, and all of a sudden he makes a sharp right, and he says, "See you later, bye," and he goes upstairs to his house, and that was over. It was all over at that point. So that's the story. See you later. Bye.